Welcome to the Runna Podcast. I'm Ben, head coach.
And I'm Anya, international marathon runner. And we're proud to be the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide.
We'll be having truly insightful conversation with truly inspirational guests, as well as bringing you tips and tricks for runners of all abilities.
Today on the podcast, we spoke to the incredible Latoya Shauntay, ultramarathoner and huge advocate for people like herself with unseen disabilities. She was once told by a doctor she would never be able to run and has since gone on to run countless marathons, 7 ultramarathons and even an 100-kilometre race. She spoke to us about the importance and progress and what still needs to be done for diversity and inclusion in the world of running. She is so incredibly inspiring and you'll be blown away and feel fearless and so powerful with what you can achieve, defying all the odds if you believe in yourself. You'll love this episode. Hi Latoya, how are you?
I'm doing amazing. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, how are you feeling after racing yesterday?
Surprisingly well. I thought I was going to be a lot more stiff than I am, but I guess that thing called mobility work is actually working, and I guess I have to credit all of the people that's been hammering it down, like, okay, you actually need to stretch after you do all of these crazy adventures, so I'm doing much better.
I need to be told that. I guess we'll get on to your racing, but we'll start at day one. How did you get into running?
Oh my gosh. It's a beautiful and eclectic story with the backstory. So I got into running in 2013. I am a former chef. I did that on and off for 10 years. I want to say like somewhere around like the 2008, the economy kind of went to a pause, and it forced me to essentially take a lot of my creative efforts, and it threw me into the direction of actually tapping into the culinary world. And I was just like, okay, you know what? I'll just do this as a hobby, which is kind of explains a lot of how I got here. Everything turned into a hobby, that turned into a passion, that turned into a career. I thought it was going to be culinary for the rest of my life. And I was like, okay, I'm going to retire and I'm going to be this baker or the chef and I'm going to have several restaurants. And life was like, no, actually, we're going to mess up your back. In the middle of your shift, I bent over, was working in corporate dining, actually somewhere in the 50s or the 60s area of New York City. And I was working for a law firm. I bent over and was not able to get back up. They diagnosed me with sciatica, told me that I had, they improperly diagnosed, and I just found that out last year, improperly diagnosed me with disc degeneration.
Okay.
And essentially all of the things that they were telling me was that I was going to lose my mobility. It wasn't an if, it was a when. So my doctor was just like, just the typical thing that plus size people are usually peddled. You have to lose weight. Your quality of life. It's like a really terrible aspirin commercial that you see somebody like running through a field and it's like flowers everywhere, but then you see all of the side effects. That's essentially how it was sold being in this space. This space to me was, if I'm going to lose my mobility and the doctor is telling me to lose weight, I'll lose weight, but I'll lose it my way. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, no, actually, you're not going to be able to sit a certain way. And you're definitely not going to be able to run. And I was like, I'll show you. If it's going to be gone, why would I not let me lose this part of me in a fabulous way? And I was just like, this is one of the terrible things on my bucket list. Running looks really miserable. This is somebody's torture sport to go into something better. But let's try it because it has a medal involved. And next thing I knew, I ended up falling in love with the community. That's really what kept me here. So shout out to Bed-Stuy Black Girls Run, which I've watched that group blossom into a movement that I just did not see. Actually, I did see the magic, but I didn't see it being this big and this dynamic. And they saw me out there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just like, why are these people so happy at 6 a.m.? The old school New Yorker in me was just like, maybe I need to pull out my pocket knife right now because there shouldn't be that many happy people at this hour. And they were the most fantastic group of women that I could have encountered. there's so many layers of my story. Initially was like, I need to get into this space to lose weight. I need to get into this space, so people can find me likable. Despite my extrovert impairing ways, I am socially awkward. I don't know what pauses mean sometimes. That came from the newly diagnosis of ADHD. I wasn't used to being the popular kid. And I walked around with this layer of, you don't trust women, because of the culture I grew up in the 80s and 90s, where it was like, you lean into women, but I don't know if I can actually open up fully. It was this layer of hurt that I walked around with, like the world is going to attack me and get me, and people are going to be here to elevate you and disappoint you. Yeah. Getting into this community, I received so much love, and I had some hard moments. But what it's taught me is that there is a strength and a power to vulnerability. And that's what this community gave me. So it was something that was supposed to be a one and done. I was like, I'm going to go into it and I'm going to do a half marathon because I'm extreme. It can't be a 5K. It can't be a 10K. No, it has to be a half marathon because I have to show them I'm a boss. And if I'm going to do it, that's right. I'm going to take this to my doctor and tell him, look what I did with my broken back. And thank God these girls was like, okay, slow your roll. We're going to teach you how to breathe. We're going to teach you how to open up your stride. We're going to teach you how to actually have fun and not look at this as a torture sport. And that became the ultimate remix to how I looked at running. And all I kept thinking to myself is, maybe I'll actually find a way to be able to do some form of storytelling with this. And essentially that's how I ended up creating this blog called Running Fat Chef, like 2 or 3 years later, where I was just like, this is actually pretty cool, so that's how I actually got into the sport.
So it very much was the case that your doctor said that you couldn't do it.
Yeah, it was.
And so you started, and then you found this incredible community that kind of taught you how.
Yeah.
And what did the doctor say when you came back to him, presumably having completed a half marathon?
Even with I'll kind of crush the story for people. Weight loss is not the solution to everything, and that is my very strong opinion, and there is a lot of science back to that. Too long didn't read. Even with me losing the weight, the doctor still insisted I still lose the weight. I still was not enough in his eyes. And he's just like, okay, well, certain things are improving, but you still have back issues. And I was just like, okay, well, you said it was a when and not an if. And I just started going out there looking for other answers and solutions. Honestly, another part of the story of how I got into it was like almost like different people and communities became my influencers before the influencer movement kind of kicked in. One of my friends, a MySpace buddy now, sorry guys, I'm kind of telling you I'm old. During the MySpace era, when I did online poetry and then essentially became like this traveling poet, I met my friend Rob Covell. He's an everyday person, but he's from London. We had this online friendship. He said he was going to do a half marathon, and I was just like, if he's doing one, I'll do one. He always reminds me anytime I tell this story to tell people he didn't actually go to his race. I did. And he's like, that's amazing you're telling people this heartwarming story, but can you tell them that I actually didn't show up? And I'm like, that's not the point here, Rob. I'm sorry. Like, thank you for getting me into this, But yeah, like even with the doctor seeing all of that, it was like, okay, that's great, but it's still not enough. And what I recognized even in this space at the time, that language was kind of coded everywhere. Yeah. Where when I go into run clubs, even when they're open, there was really no home for me. So when I would go to certain training clubs in a city, the paces were 10 plus minutes. And I ran significantly faster than what I do now. Like right now, I'm the person that they consider walking. I am the 18, sometimes 16 and a half, but I am most likely the 18, bad back days, 19, fuck this shit, 20. And I still consider myself worthy to be out there. And at that time in 2013, 14, 15, 16, that was non-existent. It was like the races would typically cut off at 13:30 a mile. If you're not off that course, guess what? There are no medals. There are no water. We might leave it open for 15, but everything's taken down. these amenities weren't there. And I'm just like, how can we say that it's inclusive if it's not actually accommodating for us? It's not accommodating us in our run groups. It's not accommodating us at the races that we're paying for. It's not accommodated, even though the messaging is saying that it's open, but not too many places, particularly in the road running community, it's not open. So as I've moved throughout this space and got into things like trail running, I was just like, oh, there's like a rogue community here that actually extends this. But the problem now is I don't see people that look like me. Yeah. So I'm just like, I'm here. And I do see a size diversity where I'm like, there's other plus size people out here. The pace, people don't care about being slow. That's great. But why am I the only Black person here? When it comes down to disability, I didn't see or hear conversations about disability. The part of my story is, as I've progressively moved, and got more traction in the space, the more that I started finding out about the real health issues that I have. Stage 4 rectovaginal endometriosis, having adenomyosis, finding out about polycystic ovarian syndrome, finding out more about what's going on with my back, finding out that I had a host of fibroids that recently, like less than a year ago, I had to have a hysterectomy, walking around and normalizing pain for 30 years. And because people couldn't see it, it was this expectation of a show and tell. Mm-hmm. Show me your scars. Oh, you can't show me your scars? I don't believe you. So when I realized there were so many pockets that I kind of checked off, and it was screwed up pockets to check off, I was just like, there's a home for this. There's a story in this. And even though it scares me, and even to this day, it still kind of makes me nervous. Yeah. It deserves to be told, because even when you feel like you're the only, you're not. Yeah. Your story is unique because it's yours. But your story and relatability is not unique. It's because there's not enough people actually being platformed for us to hear those stories. Yeah. And I think that's what my overall reason why I am still here, even in the harder moments.
Why do you think you've always had this, you face this, all these challenges, and your approach has been prove them wrong? It seems like with your disabilities and your illnesses, and they're like, you can't do that, and then you're told that you don't fit in this space, or your pace isn't right for this community, but you show up and you're like, actually no, I've got this fighting spirit in me and I'm going to prove them wrong. Where do you think that comes from?
That comes from growing up and being told all the time. I never quite fit into cliques. I never fit into anywhere. And I will even challenge that to say, even though I have a collective of 250,000 people, I know that realistically, one wrong thing could easily splice that community into half. And that's a lot of the long and short of that. That's trauma. That if you want me to be honest, a blend of it is trauma and working through that. For a number of years, I had to tell part of my story of saying I'm the high school dropout that dropped out literally for 7 gym credits. So I know my gym teachers are looking at this and saying, "Are you kidding me? The girl that literally cut school across the street from the school for gym credits is an athlete?" And even saying the word athlete was loaded to me, because I was just like, when you don't see that version of yourself out there and you don't hear those stories out there, or when that story is being told, is a level of backlash of, you don't look a certain way, you don't perform a certain way, why should I take you serious? Oh, boo-hoo, there was no medals for you. When you don't hear that, there's a level of beautiful defiance that comes from that, where it's just like, well, when is somebody going to be the first to actually challenge that narrative? When is somebody going to push against that status quo? How are we going to get the changes that we desire if nobody's willing to pick up that torch? This story is not supposed to end with me. It could begin with me, but it's not supposed to start and die with me. It is essentially about me giving somebody else permission to be able to see this and say, our stories don't exactly mirror each other, but maybe I can do this for my community. I have disabilities that's invisible, but I can't tell everybody's stories. I wouldn't wish that burden on anyone, because as much as it's a gift to be celebrated for what I do and what I amplify, it is not even in my story to tell everybody's stories. What pushed me to just push back and do it was probably, one, I'm from Brooklyn. We're loud, we're in your face. It may not come out as clean. It definitely is probably not going to come out as clean, but our hearts are in the right place. I truly believe that about New York City. I know we get a bad rep sometimes that we're rude and ruthless. No, we're just straight to the point. We peel off the Band-Aids, and sometimes we could probably use a little bit of a softer touch, but it most times comes from a good place. The other part is I come from two very strong parents who was just like, give eye contact, and if you don't feel like giving people eye contact, that's okay, but just enter with truth, enter with honesty. It is hard to weaponize your truth even when it's ugly. They may not like it, they may not be able to relate to it, they may not be able to understand it, but they can't remix your story and your truth if you're entering with it. So even if someone tries to debunk something or try to find something that's not really there, when you're telling that same story over and over and over again, your truth doesn't change. Your perception may, but your truth doesn't change. When you're telling people things that are not genuine, people smell through that. People are not stupid. We can be oblivious to certain things, but not for long. After a while, even if it takes years, people are going to be able to sort through all that stuff.
Well, I guess you started out with this half marathon.
Yes.
And you've since not only completed a half marathon, but you've done over 30 marathons.
Yeah.
And that's despite a list of physical challenges and illnesses to overcome. How did you build up from a half marathon to a marathon? And then how has your body and your mind kind of like battled through that physical journey to do so many?
Man, my body is a hardcore callous. I love her. I love her and I respect her. I think the biggest challenge was to actually remind myself, and I'm always going back to myself to say, even though this comes off as a big proverbial fuck you to anyone who's told me that I don't belong in this space, I always have to remind myself that you don't have to. That is like one of the hardest challenges when you are a marginalized person and you're being amplified, because it's just like, it's this constant chase of, they celebrated me for this, now what's the next adventure? How do I top that? And I have to always remind myself, it is okay to take the ego out the chat. That this is not about, being the first or being an exception or be like, how do you show up for you? So for me, when it came down to making that jump from going from a half marathon distance to essentially going into marathons, I essentially let the helpers actually be my influencers. And that was everyday people. Black Girls Run actually talked me into a shorter distance before the half marathon. It was like, okay, we need you to pump your brakes, because as much as you can definitely run the half marathon, it's a different experience to actually be out there with crowds. And that's when I realized I had a lot of anxiety. My first race was the Joe Kleineman 10K, January 11th, 2014. Okay. And don't ask me why I remember dates. My mom was trying to convince me to be a math major. And I'm like, my college professor on the other hand said, nothing personal, but you got a lot of personality and you are going to sleep during my class. Who told you to be here? So shout out to my LaGuardia professor at that time. What I realized was doing that race, I was just like, this is a lot. It was a lot of stimulation. And sometimes I don't think there's enough conversation about that, of being on these courses and you're not just running the distance. It's you now have to develop almost like open yourself up to taking the praise and the celebration, but also remind yourself that you're focused on the goal. That's for you. And then your heart is going like this. It's just beating, is exciting. And it's just like, oh my God, what if something happens? What if I fart, turns into a shark? What happens if these worst case scenarios start to surface? And some of those things are more of a mental challenge you may not have prepared yourself for. Mm-hmm. At the last 800 meters, I'm crying. I'm melodramatic. Oh my God, I don't know if I can make it through it. And my friend... Ngozi and Odita, who was at, I think she's still part of Black Girls Run. She is like screaming at me, like, go, go, go. I have my friend Ethel, who I look at as like, she's like my older auntie. Because when I say some things that's off the hook online, she will say, girl, I love you, but you know that is a lot. And I'm like, okay, I'll pull it back. They pretty much pushed me to go on. At the end of that race, before I even caught my breath, my girl says, so when are you going to sign up for a marathon? And I'm like, excuse me? I was like, I didn't even do the half yet. So I ended up having the message built in right there. And it was just like, all it takes is for one person to believe in you sometimes. Or for one person to give you the suggestion of you're capable of doing more. And that's essentially how it became for me, where I was just like, at first I was chasing the idea of I can prove this doctor wrong. Or I can prove that I can do these things despite having these medical conditions. It took me into the space where it was just like, maybe this can be kind of fun. To now I have a community. The community has changed into, I have a community and I get medals and stale bagels. And now this is remixed into, I can actually travel with this, which is essentially what made me get into like half marathons more often. It got me into the full marathon, and I was just like, oh, this sucks. And my body feels like a pain cave, but there's something strangely addictive about it, to making it a personal mission of how can I actually show other people without jamming it down their throat? Because I do find it kind of annoying where my runner buddies are only talking about running all day long. And I'm like, baby, I just want to enjoy this meal. It's like, how can I get and make a strong suggestion to take a chance to actually take this sport on for a chance, and just doing it by telling my own story. And miraculously, this has taken me to places that I never thought I would travel alone. I never thought I would make so many friends. I thought I would never hear so many unique stories, and I never thought I would hear so many TMI things that are not TMI, or finding myself in the middle of a desert at mile 55 and bonding with someone.
Was it the 100K Ultra?
That was my 100K Ultra. And saying, hey, do you have something to wipe yourself with? And what's your name? And I'm like, what time in the morning is it? It's like 2:00, and we're pooping behind cacti. And we have to figure out how to bury it, and hopefully we don't see wild pigs, javelinas, out there in the course. And realizing that can become a long-time friendship through those strangest of stories. And it's like, this is all real. So sometimes the magic, some elements I lose, because I wish that I can remember that joy that came from my first race. I'll never be able to recreate that moment. But there's a different type of joy where I'm watching others who are doing their first time races. And that is contagious. And that's what keeps me here.
Yeah. I mean, you have inspired such a big group of people. Have you started to feel like less alone in certain situations, having so many other voices also feel like they were the anomaly?
Yes and no.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a sacrifice that I don't think that a lot of people who have been platformed, I won't say influencers, I don't know, it just feels weird to call myself an influencer. Like, I'm just like, I'm much more than an influencer. I'm like, I'm a motivational speaker and I'm a character, but I'm also Latoya. And I feel like I lost a little bit of being able to go into rooms and being almost that person that people learn about. It's just like, I read about you already. And I'm like, damn, I've just lost a lot of that. It's not easy for me to be able to go into a run group and just go there, and then all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm turned into the motivational speaker, or I'm positioned as the expert, and I'm just like, can I just be the painfully slow Latoya, who just want to come here and struggle like everybody else, and then at the end of this, we have really good food and not be stared at. So it's like, in ways, I am hyper aware that I am no longer, this is not just a me thing. I'm also in a position where I understand I'm in a position of leadership. Yeah. And even if I like it or not, I am. Yeah. And I don't take that lightly. So I'm always very mindful when I go in on race day. But I do value having those moments now more than ever, when I do have those solo moments where I'm able to go on a solo run. And it's never anything personal. But before, I used to be in my head of, oh my God, people are going to think I'm stupid. I'm moving really slow. Nobody's here. Now I have this beauty, the best of both worlds, where I get to go into this space and I get to celebrate myself with a community. But I also have the option to celebrate myself and not looking around the room and wondering, is it all right if I celebrate myself? Is it all right to be here alone? So I have that hyper visibility. Sometimes I have that hyper invisibility if somebody doesn't like what I say. And I have that very straight talk of, no, I don't. My body doesn't owe you anything. Yeah. It doesn't owe you its performance. It doesn't owe you a race. It doesn't owe you an explanation. It doesn't even owe you. It don't owe you speed. It definitely doesn't owe you speed. So there's definitely a blend.
Yeah. But your body does. So it's all for you. Like it owes. Yeah. It's just your body. Whatever your body wants to do, that's yours. I don't
right.
That.
Yeah. I don't take it lightly. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to move. There's times where I get inboxes from people who are just like, I was doing what you were doing 20 years ago, but there was a language that we just didn't feel comfortable sharing. And you are part of a really big movement that's debunking a lot of the toxic language that's out there when it comes to conversations. And I apologize to anybody if this is a little triggering, but things like disordered eating. I was a person who fell into that. I was the person who got significantly faster. I know what it is to be in the middle of the pack, to go from back of the pack to going into the middle of the pack, hearing some of the conversations there, enjoying it, and then fighting really, really, really ridiculously hard of, I don't want to lose this community. Yeah. When we talk about eating disorders in particular, where sometimes people hear or see the artificial things, we think about it from a position of, it's a look. Sometimes it's a mental state. Yeah. And for me, I was just like, nobody could have said, hey, I'm going to peddle anorexia to you because it promises you a look. It was more like, I need you to take this heavy caloric deficit that basically speaks against you, but the reward is you get to keep community, not realizing I already have the community. Yeah. So I started taking really bad advice from people on the internet and people who, and it wasn't strangers, these were friends who had the best of intention, but were also peddled equally toxic things along the way that it becomes a truth, which is the reason why I invite people who may look at me as a creative on my platform and they're just like, hey, that doesn't work for me, so I need to call you in. Not so much call you out. I know the cancel culture is huge. Whatever. It's a matter of if you see your favorite person out there saying something that's a little questionable, you don't have to be an asshole about it. But you can say, hey, listen, let me inbox you on the side. Where did you get that information from? Where did you learn that from? This and this. And that person has the option to say yes or no, or, hey, I'm willing to entertain this conversation or not. But you've now put them on notice of this may not be okay for everybody else. I think that we need to bring it back to a place where we can respectfully disagree on certain topics. We can agree that, hey, our goals don't have to align. So there's a huge responsibility that comes with having this platform where I'm like, you don't have the privilege of being invisible. But the hypervisibility sometimes is a lot to process.
Have you seen progress in inclusion, diversity in the running space?
Oh, okay. Let's see if y'all like me for this one. I've seen a lot of performative progress in this space, but I see and experience and benefit off of the real changes that's happened. The real changes are very, very slow, but they're happening. Shout out to my ex-podcast partner, Martinez Evans. He has a group called Slow AF Run Club, and we have a very similar story where we both know what it is to be heckled on courses. One of the courses my story gained a lot of traction in 2017 from an article that I wrote about being heckled at the New York City Marathon, and it essentially made a girl get fired actually from her job. Shout out to y'all getting me fired from my job because of it. It was a beautiful firing. Before I'm dope, but in 2017 I wrote this article for theroot.com. It's always been my dream to be a storyteller. That's been one of the biggest things that's been with me since I was like 5 or 6 years old. And theroot.com reached out to me and was like, one, your blog is funny as hell, and it's very unapologetic. And I was like, thank you. And it was like, how would you feel about contributing an article? Do you have a topic? And I was like, well, I kind of got heckled at the New York City Marathon. This is before Brittany runs the marathon. I was like, I got heckled at the 21st or 22nd mile of the New York City Marathon. And the person told me it was going to take my fat ass forever. And I did not realize, because it happens so much, you kind of normalize it, but it didn't happen in person. I was used to, the keyboard warriors, the keyboard experts, see, the reason why you get in fat shame is because we need to tell you that you just need to lose some weight. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know I was fat. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know there was something wrong. There's nothing wrong with you, by the way. Ended up telling the story. It was 925 words. Didn't have any control over the title. I woke up on November 30th and I was like, what the hell's going on with my account? Why? I was like, is my phone glitching? Is it broken? And the alerts just would not stop going off. And I'm like, what is happening here? What the hell is a viral moment? Why are people calling me a body positive activist? I'm like, I do activist work, but not in this realm. What is body positivity? Like, it was like I was kind of getting thrown all of these elements at once. And then the next day it was just like, we're putting you in People's Magazine, huh? Who? Why? I'm like, have you guys listened to my mouth? I like F words. And it's not just the filthy ones. Like, I like food and fitness. But what I realized through that is that my story was much bigger than me. Mm-hmm. And essentially I kind of got put here in a space. It's beautiful watching people actually take me serious, because that was the one thing I didn't think was going to happen. I didn't think anybody was going to take me serious. When I'm actually coming to a wrap of a Hoka partnership that's been 7 years long. When they reached out to me, I thought it was a joke. So much so that the email I sent back was like, okay, heckler, yeah, sure, you're a writer. Sure, you want to profile me, because I didn't see it. I didn't see someone taking a black girl from Brooklyn, putting them up in Huck magazine, and I was just like, I don't even know about Huck magazine, but I was like, this sounds pretty damn cool. I didn't think that people invested themselves in stories like mine for the long run. That's a huge change. You see more narratives that look like mine, sound like mine, and don't sound like mine since 2017, 2018. When it comes down to race directors, they are really listening to us. Please continue to make noise. When I told my story in 2017, people fell in love with the polished 925 words that was there. But there was an expectation of, your next step is to lose weight. I gained weight. They expected me to move faster. I did not move faster. I moved slower. Then the narrative shifts to, she's a grifter. She is trying to get attention off of body positivity. She's trying to get attention by remaining fat. She's gaining weight. Then I wrote another article that I did not know. I was not as naive, but I did not think it was going to blow up as much. Wrote an article for the Huffington Post about signing up for 10 marathons in 1 year. Too long didn't read. It hurts. It hurts, and I may never ever do that again, but I don't regret it. People didn't realize that I was already doing crazy adventures like this before I ever got platformed. So to others who were just like, I don't think someone like her is actually doing that, I started getting challenged. So the language now, and I think I see a lot of that change now after 2020, where a lot of those stories kind of amplified by 300%. We were all stuck at home. People like me, I lost 14 people in a year. It was hard being from New York City, and I haven't recovered from it. But that year I started watching the running boom kick in, and because of that, so have the conversations. They have evolved. Let's talk about race issues. Let's talk about size diversity. Let's talk about why we tell people that that running's for everyone, but the clothes stop at a 2X, which is still a problem. Let's talk about the fact that we tell people, hey, you're welcome here, just don't dress like that. Let's talk about the fact that, shoes are available, but then the color wave is only limited if you have a wide width, foot. Let's talk about the fact that we tell people, yeah, we'll take your money and we're going to keep the course open. And it sounds great to say that you have an 18-minute per mile cutoff, but the police car is behind you at 17 or 16. There's progression. There's change, but some of it is cosmetic, because right now I watch the changes that happened in 2020 and 2021. And then it backpedaled right now in 2025, where in real time, particularly in America, we're watching a lot of those changes happen. And a lot of people, including myself, was just like, I knew that was going to happen. And it's not because we wanted to be pessimistic. It's predictable. You can't tell me that there's not a market for people like me. We are screaming it every day, but it feels like a power play when you tell people, hey, here's this thing, but it's only accessible if you fit into this club. We can do so much better. And as a strategist, as a part-time strategist, I know that we are capable of doing better, but it's going to require all hands on deck. This is not just back of the pack's problem to fix these things. It is not just for brands to do these things. It's not just for people who are race directors to fix these things. It requires an all hands on deck. Leave your egos at the door. Really listen to your audience and what they are trying to tell you, and let's fix these problems. We now have apps. Ironically, we have apps that are being progressive about, hey, what kind of run program do you want?
Yeah.
I run slower and I'm never going to be able to do this Calcia 5K. So how can we remix that idea and say, instead of that Calcia 5K program being 6 weeks, how about we double it? Let's make it 12. Yeah. How about this program starts with a Calcia 5K walking? Okay, cool. Now that we got here, how can we change that? The way that we listen to our audience, that's a love language. And that is marketable. That can get you sales, and that, more than anything, builds communities. Before I ever amplify brands, I'm always going to promote community, because the money or the love or whatever you're going for is going to follow up with that.
I guess when you started, you wanted to prove the doctor wrong.
Yeah.
And then you implied that you wanted to run the marathon distance because rather than proving someone wrong, you had the spark that someone believed in you and that was possible.
Yeah.
Was moving into ultramarathons the same? Or was it proving haters online wrong? Or what was the driving motivation? Was it everything added together?
She's going to kill me when she sees this. That damn Myrna Valeria. Okay. So there was a person that I was getting confused for, people confused me for, who's also from Brooklyn, New York. She is a dynamic motivational speaker, athlete. We happen to both be plus size Black and from Brooklyn, New York. She's currently in Vermont, and she wrote a book called Beautiful Work in Progress. When she was writing this book, I happened to be one of the people who was a test reader, and she's like, hey, girl. She literally signed it and autographed it. She took me on my first hike, and I was just like, I know Black people go hiking, but nobody actually invites me to it. And she's like, girl, stop it. Come on. So she takes me on this hike. It was like January 1st. And she's like, there's a warning. Your phone might actually die. These were all the things I was learning by proxy of being around her. Like, if anybody doesn't know about her, I suggest you, one, look into her. And two, she's, I will not say former educator. I think that she educates people on a daily basis. And she's one of those magic people who entered my life, saw me, and was just like, you're a beautiful storyteller, but I can see that you're scared of telling your own story in so many ways. So instead of forcing it down your throat, let me just show you that you are possible because you're already doing it. Just stop overthinking it. So when I would say things like, Black people don't hike, she'd be like, okay, I'm going to invite you so I can show you that. Hey, look in the mirror. Look, you're a Black girl hiking. Oh no, we don't do 100Ks. And she literally wrote in her first chapter about this race called Javelina 100K. And she was like, she's like, I'm sensitive about my shit. Tell me what you think about my book. And I remember texting her and saying, girl, we don't do that type of shit, referring to Black people. And what I realized that I was destigmatizing my own brain. Because even I had a bias of what people, even while I was elevating people and promoting, yes, we belong in every space. I have to ask myself and be genuinely honest to say, but are we really doing that? And she was my living proof of, actually, we've been doing that. So she gives me this book and she's talking about all the things that's in there. And I'm just like, I will never do that. And I was speaking from a place of fear. So she tells me, sign up for it. She's like, I don't care. Find a way to sign up for it and I'll be there. Newsflash, she did not show up twice to this race. But I love her for it because I wonder what that story would look like. But
But you did it anyway.
I did it anyway. But the thing is, my helpers, it was actually by proxy of Hoka, and that's how my relationship with them built. So when the story went viral in 2017, it was like it opened up a world of possibilities. And I basically was talking about accessibility issues. It wasn't just, I'm a plus size girl and I'm scared I'm going to get lost. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't really go on trails. Who does that? I'm scared of my own shadow. I like long distances, but I don't like bugs. Like trying to explain, it wasn't just that as a barrier. Financially, it was a barrier. These races are expensive. At the time, I don't know what it was, like $300, $400 to get into the race. And I'm just like, okay, who can afford this? The other part of it was, how am I going to travel there? How am I going to afford food? I have a family, and we have these real life bills. I don't care what people say about, influencing. Influencing does not guarantee that your light bill is going to get paid. You have to have a strategy. This is still a business. We deserve to get paid. And at the time, I was anti-influencer. I was just like, oh, it must be just a bunch of people getting free stuff. I'm like, this is for kids, not realizing, oh, this is a whole career. So my mind wasn't there yet. But here comes, this big chunky sneaker company. And I'm just like, your shoes are ugly, but they feel amazing. I'm just completely unfiltered and unhinged. And they're laughing. They're laughing. And they're just like, okay, we would love to meet up with you. The person, her name is Marta Garcia. She introduces me completely to the brand. And she's like, what are your dreams? And I was just like, my friend kind of brought up this 100K race, but I don't think I'm going to actually do it because I just can't afford it. And she's like, I can help you with that. And I was just like, what's going on here? Okay. And I was like, well, how are you going to help me? And she's like, I can help you, gain entry to it. And I was like, well, I can't afford this. Don't worry about it. We'll cover your ticket. Okay. So what am I going to do when I'm out there? Don't worry about it. We'll transport you. I was like, I don't drive. I am notoriously New York City. I do not have a license, and that's terrible to admit at almost 40. But every time I named a barrier, she just kept knocking it down. It was just like, what does your possibilities look like when somebody will eliminate your excuses? Literally, Myrna was my person who was like my Jimmy Cricket that was in my ear. But the possibilities literally came from putting my dreams out there. And the right person heard it. They opened up that possibility, and I get it. It's not everybody's reality. But it was a matter of seizing the moment and the opportunity. And I'm like, if I never do this again, I get to say I attempted this. Even if I don't finish it, I tried the scary thing. I ripped off the Band-Aid. I'm actually investing and shocking myself. That's what I realized with this entire thing, is that it became less of proving myself to other people and more of proving myself to my reflection that I do deserve to be in this space. And this is just not just a bunch of, I'm going to, look in the mirror and tell myself some great positive affirmations. Shout out to you who do that, because I do. But I really was able to give myself the opportunity to say, I am everything that I think that I am plus tax. And that's what the 100K became. I was scared. I looked up every YouTube video on how to do 100K. I looked at the course religiously. And the part that I loved and felt seen about was the idea that the last person was celebrated. I was the last person that came into that finish line. And I was like, I'm used to finish lines being dismantled. I'm used to nobody being there. Oh, there's no medals for you. I was the last person there. They still had the finish line up. They had at least 20 to 30 people out there cheering me on. I'm trying not to cry.
Congratulations for doing it.
That was 2018. And I still feel that magic that I just want more people to feel. And that was the thing that told me my story is much more and much larger than me. And we deserve to be celebrated too, regardless of what distance. It could be your first 800 meter. It could be your first 5K, it could be your first 100 miler. And you can fabulously fail at this shit too. It gave me courage to tell the harder stories. I remember the opposite way of this going, where I'm like, here I am. I did the 100K that year in 2018. 2019, I tried to do a 100 miler and I DNF'd, but with a larger platform who did not approve of me. And it was just like, look at this girl going out here doing this for clout. She's doing this for attention. I made it to the first loop and it humbled me so much. I did rookie mistakes. I kept on my wedding ring. My fingers swole up in the desert. For anyone who is not familiar with going from a climate like New York City, where it's humid, the humidity does not exist in the middle of Arizona in a desert. So by the time that you feel like you're thirsty, you're already in danger. There is a thing called overhydration. I did that. So my body started swelling. And in turn, it got really violent, where it was just like, now I have to make the harder decisions of, is this even safe to go on further? And I call her my guardian angel. It was a woman that was at the medical tent. And she's like, you could, but I don't suggest you should. And I felt like those stories needed a home too. So I started talking about that. I started talking about the DNFs. So as much as I tell people, hey, I'm a 30-time marathoner, I'm a 7-time ultra runner, I've completed the highest distance of 100K, I am an 11-time DNFer. And I am proud of every single last one of it. So I can call out all the accolades, but I can also call out all the things that people call as low moments. Oh, we're not supposed to talk about DNFs. Oh, we don't talk about Bruno. No, we talk about him here.
Everything.
We talk about everything. Let's talk about what it is to fabulously fail. Let's talk about what it is to come into a finish line with blood running down your legs because your menstrual is like, hey, I'm not invisible today. I'm very visible. 2019 New York City Marathon, I finished the race. I helped somebody come across the finish line, and she looked at me and she's like, oh my God, you're bleeding. And I'm like, I've been bleeding since mile 14 and there's nothing I can do about it. And it was my medical issues coming out to show itself. I got heckled. I got told that I was attention seeking. I got told that you just don't do that. I got called nasty and disgusting and all these vile things. But what happened was I also got emails of thank you.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage to go out there and do that anyway, to tell people in inbox, well, how do you go around and move with endometriosis and you have all this pain? Well, you know what? I wear this thing that 60-year-olds usually wear, and that's called the pins. And I'm wearing that on top of a tampon, on top of a pad. And even when I change it, there's a possibility that all of this is not going to work. What happens then? Do you quit at mile 16 even though you have 10 extra miles in the tank? Or are you going to continue on and say, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway?
Yeah.
And that to me is a stronger story any day of the week than telling people this Disney World, no shade, telling this this fantasy of every day is great and I'm never in pain and this and this. People want real stories, and real stories look like highs and lows. They look like mountains. They do not look like flat plains. Even when we tell people that we're on a flat run, we know that's a lie. Even your flat run still has elevation. So it is important to tell the hard stories. You don't have to be self-deprecating. You don't even have to add humor to it. Be honest. Be honest, be transparent, and do it at a level where you feel that your comfort is starting to slightly be shaken up, but not to a place where you're ripping yourself apart. Be humble. Take your time. There's no rush in this. It is literally an ultra marathon. For me, the 100K became that. I had my dark moments come out. I had moments where I was just like, why the hell am I here? There were times I actually hallucinated. And then I realized that it wasn't a hallucination, that for about the last 15 to 20 miles, I had butterflies following me. And that's been a thing on a lot of my races. And somehow I've silently thought, that is my dad looking over me. On all of these races, my dark moments, I tap into my father's voice, and he was just as abrasive, if not worse. It was lots and lots of profanity, but he's like, you ain't no punk. And that's what keeps me going. The last 10 miles of a race is not about, a strategy. Sometimes it's a feeling. And I take that on every ultra. I take that on every marathon. I take that on every training run, that I can just go a little bit further, and that's okay.
Wow. I think you very much embody telling the highs and the lows. And I think for anyone listening, you proved that you can do incredible things, even when the odds are against you, like the doctor said at the start. And who knows what you can do into the future thereafter as well. And I imagine if you could have the doctor listen to this and see you now and see everything that you've achieved. And I think it really
ha!
Exactly. But I think to anyone out there who is listening and thinks they can't do this crazy thing they've seen on the internet or this crazy thing they've seen on the TV, they can, but the only way they can is if they believe they can, just like you believed after you sat down with that doctor and after you had your friend tell you that you could maybe do a marathon one day.
And I also will say, it's okay if you don't do the crazy things that's on the internet. I think that there's this perception that, well, this influencer do it or this person did it, that I have to do it too. And then now we're putting the pseudo pressure on ourselves. I'm like, you can always uninvite yourself. You can be the person that say, you know what, I'm giving myself permission to stay home because that's the harder decision. Sometimes we go out there with our ego. I can do this marathon. And it's like, all right, cool. Now I earned this medal and this year injury. Give yourself permission to stay home. If you realistically, especially as a person with chronic conditions and chronic medical conditions, give yourself permission to opt out sometimes. We want to do all of these amazing things, but sometimes that amazing thing may not happen on this Sunday. Maybe it's meant to happen on a Monday or a Tuesday. We do not have to follow this strategy because all of our friends did it. Remove yourself from the peer pressure. Find a way to use somebody else's inspiration to create your own magic. If you see somebody like me on the internet, I'm a plus size girl. I'm over 250 pounds. I'm 5'3". I look taller in person. It's only because of the sneakers. But people sometimes see me powerlifting and they're just like, oh, that girl is lifting 425 pounds. She's squatting. She's squatting a human. She's really strong. And then there's days that I literally cannot shower myself. And I'm just like, you're not seeing all that in the 30 to 60 second video. Give yourself permission to actually stay home if you need to. And that's completely okay. It does not mean that you are not an athlete. When you are sidelined, when we see our favorite athletes, Serena Williams and all other people out there, when they are injured, do we stop calling them an athlete? Yeah. So why the hell would we speak to ourselves that way when we're sidelined? You can be an athlete and be out for 2 years and come back and your story looks completely different. Don't get caught up in this narrative of I have to compare myself to who I was yesterday. If I did that, I would be in a torture sport. I'm a person who my fastest mile ever was like an 8:46 a mile for a 1 mile. I can't do that for 3. Right now, I'm like, I'm just trying to get back to a 15. The goal is like, can a girl get back to a 15-minute pace? But I celebrate my 16, my 17s, my 18s, my 19s. I'm like, I'm out here sashaying at finish lines. I'm out here picking up people. Maybe I was supposed to be somebody's helper today. I carry extra gels just in case somebody else needs it. There's magic in that. So there's space for all of us in this.
That's amazing.
Yes,
that is
a powerful message.
Yes.
Let's segue over to Steph with our coaching tip of the week.
My top tip today is on carrying nutrition during a longer run. There can be such a stress around where you're going to fit your gels. Do you have enough pockets? If I hold them in my hand, are they going to fall out? But simply by using a hydration vest or water pack, you can take everything you need with you. There's so many options on the market which are lightweight and comfortable. It's a great way to carry all your fuel and ensure you get everything in planned and you do not need to stop along the way. Be prepared and don't compromise your nutrition plan, as this can really affect your running performance.
Thanks for that, Steph. I'm going to bring us back with a coaching discussion. Latoya, this one's for you. As a chef and a founder of The Running Chef, what are your favourite ways to fuel yourself through your endurance challenges? And do you have any secret recipes you have up your sleeve?
Oh my God, secret recipes. Man, I'm going to be honest. I am a girl that sometimes need to eat a little bit more carbs. Carbs are your friends. Please. It's just a matter of, it depends on what works for your body. I can't give the same advice for somebody that has celiac compared to my gastrointestinal issues. So the strategy that typically works for me is that before, let's say that I'm actually preparing for a race, right?
Yeah.
Before a race, I like to give myself that grace of the 3 hour before. 3 hours before, I might, if I want that hearty meal, I'm going to have that hearty meal. But if I know that coffee is not my friend on race day, then you need to get up 3 hours before and have that coffee so you can let out all of the demons. You can use your imagination, guys. Let out all of the demons into the bathroom. I'm one of those girls, and we're going to get a little bit TMI about the poop conversation, unfortunately. I'm a person that I go through race day jitters, whether it's a 1 miler or it's a ultramarathon. So I make sure that I'm eating enough to buffer me for the first several miles that's out there. Things happen. We think that we have our strategy down and we get caught up with seeing a friend out there in the course. Next thing you know, that window of taking a gel every 45 minutes has now turned into an hour to an hour and a half. When you have a meal that's in the tank to hold you over for a certain amount of miles, then that's great. Not everybody eats like this, the banana on toast. Some people are just like, I don't want it. Maybe you need to drink your calories. So if you have, there's a company out there that gives you a blend of, I want to say a mixture of potassium, magnesium, just a little bit of magnesium that has carbs, and has electrolytes. That's typically what you're looking for within that hour and a half to 2 hour buffer. When I get out there, if you're a person that is a heavy sweater, maybe it's better for you to actually have 30 minutes before your run, put some electrolytes in your system to give yourself something to go. Yeah. If you do have sensitive issues like diabetes or hypertension, I'm going to always recommend you to always talk to your doctor. But for me, my go-to might be as simple as I have an oatmeal, if that's 2 or 3 hours before. Yeah. Because oatmeal, sometimes as great as it feels, it can make me sluggish for the first hour. So I like to give myself a little bit of time. If I am running close to time, I'll have something like peanut butter on toast. There's healthy fat. There's some carbs that's there. I can pair it up with something like a slime, like 1 or 2 slices of bacon. Girl is ready to go out there and do it. Mm-hmm. But post race, I'm getting down with all the fun stuff. Don't be afraid of burgers. Okay, burgers are we're vilifying them and saying that they're terrible. Listen to my flexitarians out there, because I am a person that sometimes I eat more, or sometimes I lean towards fish, so that make me more of a pescatarian. Don't be afraid of the fueling meal, the heavy meals that's going to replenish all of those things that's being broken down. We're not just burning calories out there, we're breaking down muscles. So we have to be really proactive in repairing that stuff. So my go-to is I love to have a healthy serving of salmon, particularly if it's glazed with some type of like if it's like in the lemongrass or if it has a little bit of honey drizzle on top of it. I love a good quinoa bowl. Or if there's like a healthy grain bowl I can throw in there, I throw in the avocado for the healthy fat. I'm throwing in greens because doing that before the race.
Fiber. Yeah.
Fiber sometimes is not your friend before a race. Ask me how I know. Don't eat beets the morning of your race and then go to your doctor and say, hey, I'm bleeding. No, it's the beets. It's the beets. It comes out. The dye is there unless you're doing golden beets. But, like, don't be afraid to eat those things that actually, not just physically repair the muscles, but actually make you feel good. Yeah. Food is not a punishment, so like I would tell for my fish, eaters, salmon is a great option. Cod is a great option. If you're not into quinoa, maybe you want to go for rice, potatoes. You get those starchy, elements to go in there. And remember to keep that same mindset the day after the race, that you are still actively repairing those things. If you're not much of a fish person and you're more of a vegetarian, look into, if you're not much of a tofu fan, maybe you're getting that from your black beans. You might be getting that from a lentil. You may be getting that by loading that with a bit of potatoes. If you're into things like okra, it's really great. If you're like, okra is too slimy, chef's tip, don't cut it. Just throw it in there and just let it go and simmer on a pan. Or consider throwing it into a soup. It starts to thicken up the stew naturally without you having to use what we consider a cornstarch slurry, which is basically mixing cornstarch with a little bit of water, cold water at that. Otherwise, you're going to have lumps. You're going to be eating cornstarch, and it's kind of nasty. You're basically going to be doing that. And don't be afraid of the flavor. Be mindful more before of what you're putting into your system, because that stuff will come out on the course. So do things that's simple. It does not have to be a 5-star meal. It does not have to be something that's heavily curated. And if you are a person that don't have really of a support system post-race and you're not going to a restaurant, your budget can't really afford it, it really helps if you actually make your meal in advance so you can dummy-proof it. After races, my brain is mush. Yeah. Don't ask me about anything. Don't ask me to do multiplication. No, I'm a scholarly reader, but not after a race. It's just like, what? Dummy-proof all this stuff for yourself in advance by making these meals, maybe making even the next day meal, and covering yourself for the next 3 days. And if you have to, freeze it, throw it into the oven, let it become like this wonderful present to yourself aside from the medal.
Love that. Should we move on to our this or that's? Yeah. Okay, so these are a few options you're going to have to pick between. So first one, I'm adding this one on, but you clearly love the trail running.
Yes.
But you love the roads and the races. Mm-hmm. If you could only run on the roads or the trails again, which are you picking?
Oh, that's just torturous. Why would you do that? Because I'm from New York, I'm going to have to say road, but my body ain't going to like it. God. Yes, I'm going to say road because all my people are like right here in New York City. Like if I can't travel anywhere, I know I can travel in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you're a road runner.
Yeah, what are you?
I like them both, but I think I'd narrowly pick road.
Okay.
Okay. Similar. You can only cook one dish for the rest of your life.
Oh my gosh.
Or you can only run one distance for the rest of your life.
Oh.
Which would you pick? So you can either have freedom of cooking, but you can only run one distance, and you pick what that distance is. Or you can have freedom of running, but you can only eat the same meal for the rest of your life.
Let y'all see my shirt so that I can answer that for y'all. I need freedom of meals. My palate will lose its mind, even with me being a salmon girl. I will lose my mind if I eat salmon every single day. There's just too many amazing meals out there. So I'm team food. So I guess we're going to be doing the same distance every single day.
And what would that distance be?
I would say a healthy 10K is great.
Okay, so you can never run a 5K again, and you can never run a marathon.
Then you know what? I can walk it. I can change the rules.
Sure. Okay, last one. For everyone who can't see, your nails and your hair are fantastic. But if you could only have one, and the other had to be box standard boring.
Oh my God.
Which are you picking?
No, the hair has to be fantastic. The hair, as a black girl, though, the hair is a statement. And even when I got married with I think I scared my husband. I shaved it down to a buzz cut and got married in a pantsuit. So even when the hair was not long, because it's much longer than what it looks like right now. I know people are going to see me in a couple of days like, oh my God, girl, where will that hair come from? It's mine. Thank you. And while I know that hair does not make an entire person, this is part of my personality, and she is her own identity. So yes, the hair has to stay. The nails will just have to be boring, and that's okay. Maybe I can throw a little razor cut on there. She won't have no color on them, but yes.
Well, the good news is you can keep the hair, the nails, the trail running, the road running, and the food and all the distances. So,
right. Like,
so you're all good. Now we've taken it away and given it back. It's all good. Andy, do you want to take us on with our final question of the day?
Our final question that we like to ask all of our guests is, you're designing your dream race. What is the distance? Where is it? What food and drink at the finish? And who will present you with your award?
Oh my gosh. Okay. See, I thought about this question really hard. So it's going to be a little extra, y'all. Okay. So Samuel L. Jackson has to be the person that's going to be like taking me away with this race. Like he's going to be out there screaming out like all of our favorite obscenities, just because like Samuel's amazing. The soundtrack is going to be Kendrick Lamar. Because he's just part of the culture right now. He's just out here canceling people. And I love it. He's my favorite Gemini because I'm a Gemini too. I take that back. I'm a Prince girl. If I can bring Prince back from the dead, he has to be in this soundtrack too. When it comes down to the distance, that's going to be a hard one. Just because I want the accessibility to be there, it's got to be a fun 5K that I can do, and the place would be in my neighborhood. I am a Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, East New York. I'm shouting out all the neighborhoods, but I would love for that to be in some place of Brooklyn. So I can actually be able to show people my home. Show them why I have so much Brooklyn pride, why I will rep us to death, even when we had a terrible reputation at one point. I would love to be able to show people the history, to show people the evolution, to show people, because I'm a little bit of a history buff. I would love to just be able to show people a bit of the culture and what made it magical, the highs, the lows, the things that was there. The food has to be off the hook, because there's no way. Your seasoning rack will be coming. And there's going to be something here for everybody. At that race, you got gluten-free allergies, baby, no problem. We're going to find the best dishes, and we're not going to disrespect you and only give you a salad if you're vegetarian. We don't do that around here. So, yeah, I think that Samuel L. Jackson would have to be there. We're gonna dig Prince up. We're going to make sure that he comes there. He's going to represent. And we're just going to have the best 5K ever. And I know that we usually celebrate first place people. We can celebrate y'all. First, second, and third, yes, we're going to celebrate y'all. But there has to be, at the end, there has to be a crown for the last person. That last person has to come in to the biggest, baddest celebration ever, like the way that you see at New York City Marathon. They've been doing that for a number of years. We're going to have a hype person. We're going to have a special hype person just for that at the end. I think we need to make something like that.
That sounds like a party.
It has to be. Like, I mean, like you can't do all these miles and suffer, even if it's only 1 mile. That's a lot for a lot of people. Like, I mean, I don't know, what is it? They always suggest 10,000 steps or something of that nature. And I'm just like, that has to be a made up number. But like, there's a lot of people who are sedentary, some by choice and some not by choice. And it's just like a mile is worth celebrating. So I look at it as, imagine what that 5K remixed could look like in a race where you get to actually experience the culture, talk to people, not feel the pressure of this is too much. So as much as I love my marathons, my ultras, and those longer distances, those shorter distances and shorter distance athletes, they need to be celebrated too. I think that they need a little bit more attention than what we're kind of giving it these days.
Wow, that would be a fantastic event, fantastic race. So you have to make that happen one day. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, telling us your story and sharing your fantastic energy.
Thank you so much.
And we cannot wait to see where you take your running next.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Today's podcast is powered by Runna. Runna is the #1 rated running coaching service worldwide, and whatever your running goal, whether you're looking to do your first 5K, improve your time over the 10K, or even run a marathon or an ultramarathon, we'll build you the personalized training for you to help you get there and enjoy the process along the way. If you want to download the Runna app, you'll get 2 weeks for free with code podcast25. And if you're already a Runna customer, you can head to the premium offers section where we've got a 15% off discount for you off any of our Runna merchandise.
And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, subscribe. And if you loved it, give us a 5-star rating. And we'll be back next week with another inspiring guest. See you then.